Senator Schumacher and Senator Bull. Senator Lathrop, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President and colleagues. I am in support of 690 and opposed to Floor Amendment 201. And I have, as I've done on a few occasions this year, listened to the debate. I thought this bill would take about 25 minutes. I appreciate Senator Schumacher's questions because they go to the bill. They go to the subject, whether this is a good bill or not, and instead we're being sidetracked by the discussion on bigger government. And sometimes I can't help myself, but I got to respond to this. I want to ask this question, and you don't have to stand up and answer it, but you know what? We talk every time we're going to do something for a poor person, for an elderly person, do something that has something to do with Medicaid. All of a sudden, a group in this body stands up and talks about the federal budget. Now, no one was talking about lowering taxes and whether that was a good idea when we were in the middle of 2 wars. No one. No one thought we needed to worry about spending money when we were starting 2 wars, and now we're in a hole. We cut taxes while we were at war. And now we have a group that stands up and talks about the evils of bigger government. And it becomes the battle cry every time we want to spend money on a poor person, or a sick person, or an elderly person. You know what? I have heard no one complain about the money we get and spend from the federal government on roads. It's a lot. We couldn't do it ourselves, but we take the money from the federal government and we do what they ask. You know that Dubas bill the other day? If you read that thing, you probably wouldn't like what's in it. But we're going to do it so we can keep the roads money coming, and not one of you stood up to complain about taking the federal roads money. We have people in here all across the state. I don't know what would happen to our farm economy if the farm subsidies went away, but no one rails against those, and no one declines them either. That's good money, because that's not about bigger government, that's good policy. And we get into the policy when we get away from the poor people and the sick people and the people that need Medicaid. The crop insurance subsidy. That program, you couldn't buy crop insurance in this country if the federal government wasn't helping you out. I went to a water task force meeting this year. You should have been there, because they're talking about how do we get federal money to help pay for our water projects. And it's a lot of the same people that are standing up and railing on federal government spending, big government. And I can only conclude that it happens. It is a problem for you when we're talking about the poor, and when we're talking about the sick, and when we're talking about the elderly and how they are going to live and how they're going to access health care. Then we got an issue. Let me tell you what our own experience has been following the ideology of railing on big government. There's really two tenets to this. One is fewer government employees and less money, right? Some of you weren't here when BSDC blew up, but it was a perfect example of that philosophy being implemented down at the Beatrice State Developmental Center. We didn't have the staff. We wanted to save money on those people because it's not a farm program, and it's not roads, and it's not education, and it's not a water project, so we started to starve the beast down at BSDC. You should read the report from the Department of Justice that said we were violating people's civil rights. It was the most difficult thing I've ever read as a state senator.
1 minute.
That's what you get when you try to starve the beast without thinking it through. But that's not the only example. We were going to reduce the number of state employees by privatizing child welfare. That blew up. It melted down. In about 6 months, it cost us $75 million so far, and the federal government wants another $22 million back. So I'm going to suggest something, that in the end, it's not about standing up and just saying, this is more big government, we got to stop. In the end, maybe there's a good reason for the farm program. Maybe there's good policy behind what they're doing in the federal government. And this talk about big government It is a campaign strategy and not a policy approach to government. And in the end, we are called to govern this body, to make good policy and to govern. And if you want to stand up and use campaign rhetoric on the floor, understand that I'll stand up and tell you why it doesn't make sense.
Time, Senator.
Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Lathrop. Those still